Hey, before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what's coming next. My name is Jacob Harper. I'm 32, an IT guy by trade, and someone who has always been fascinated by the night sky. I never believed in aliens, at least not until what happened to me last summer. Started on a quiet Wednesday night. I was driving back from a small town about 40 miles west of Las Vegas, just past the outskirts of what everyone calls Area 51. I had spent the evening at a friend's house, testing out some new stargazing equipment, nothing fancy, just a telescope, a couple of cameras, and a notebook for logging constellations. The road was empty, the kind of blacktop that stretches endlessly under a sky so dark you can almost feel the stars pressing down on you. I was lost in thought, reviewing the photos I'd taken, when I first noticed it, a light, distant but unnaturally bright, hovering in the desert. At first, I assumed it was a plane or some military aircraft. They fly over that area all the time, but it didn't move the way a plane should. It just hung there perfectly still. And then it started moving. Slowly at first, zigzagging in ways that no conventional aircraft could. My pulse quickened, but I told myself I was overthinking it, that my brain was playing tricks after hours of staring at the stars. I accelerated, trying to put more distance between myself and whatever it was. That's when the first unmistakable thing happened. The headlights in front of me went out. Not dimmed or flickered. They just completely died, plunging me into a darkness so deep I felt my own heartbeat echo in my chest. The car radio cut out at the same time, static filling the cabin. I grabbed my phone, but of course there was no signal. And then the light reappeared, closer now and impossibly bright, reflecting off the sand and the side of the car. My instincts screamed to run, but something about the way it moved was deliberate, almost intelligent. Whatever it was tracking me. I swerved onto a dirt side road, hoping to lose it in the sparse desert scrub, but it followed. No sound, just that eerie white glow floating effortlessly above the ground, as if gravity didn't apply to it. I remember thinking about every alien movie, every conspiracy theory I'd ever laughed at, and now I was living it. And then came the hum. Low, vibrating, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder, resonating through my chest. It was unlike any engine noise I'd ever heard. Nothing mechanical, nothing natural. The car started to shake as if caught in a magnetic field, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. And just when I thought I might crash, it stopped. The light hung above me, pulsating, like it was studying me. I remember closing my eyes for a split second, and when I opened them, I was no longer on the dirt road. I was inside something, though I couldn't see it clearly. The air felt heavy, metallic. The temperature was off. Not hot, not cold, just wrong. And then I realized I couldn't move my arms. Not entirely, just enough that I felt restrained, though there were no visible bindings. A figure appeared, tall, almost skeletal, with limbs that seemed to stretch in impossible angles. Its eyes, if you could call them eyes, glowed faintly. I wanted to scream, but the sound wouldn't come. Instead, an overwhelming calm washed over me, a compulsion to just watch, to absorb. The light around me dimmed slightly, and in that dimness I saw screens. Images of desert landscapes, roads, cities, all overlaid with data I couldn't understand. And then, a voice, not spoken aloud, but in my head. Clear, emotionless, commanding. Do not panic. You are safe. Safe? I thought I was going to die. But there was no malice, only observation. It was examining me, studying my reactions. Minutes, hours? Passed. Time had no meaning. I don't remember how long I floated there, a passive participant in an experiment I didn't ask to be part of. And then, as suddenly as it began, I was back in my car, engine running, lights on, phone signal restored. The desert stretched before me as though nothing had happened, but my watch read hours ahead of when I remembered last checking. The road home was empty, quiet, but the memory of the light, The hum, the figure. It never left. I tell myself I imagined it, that exhaustion and isolation triggered a vivid hallucination. But then there's the data on my camera, files timestamped hours into the future, images that I can't explain, landscapes I've never seen. I drove straight home that night, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed the encounter over and over, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. Something had marked me that night, something that didn't leave when I returned to my normal life. And that's when the chase really began. I started noticing things almost immediately. Small things at first. My electronics behaving oddly, screens flickering when I looked at them, phones turning on and off, even my smartwatch recording strange readings that didn't make sense. At night, I could hear a low hum outside my apartment, a vibration that seemed to move through the walls and floor. I told myself it was paranoia, that after what happened in the desert my mind was inventing patterns. But then came the sightings. Shadows in the sky, bright lights moving in impossible ways, always just beyond the reach of my camera, always fleeting, watching. One evening I decided to retrace my steps from that first encounter. I drove back toward the dirt road, toward the stretch of desert near Area 51. The farther I went, the heavier the feeling became, like the air itself was watching me, pressing down. The hum returned, low and insistent, and then I saw it. A faint glimmer far ahead, hovering just above the ground, moving in ways no helicopter or drone could. I tried to approach, but my car stalled, completely dead. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, engine off, headlights dimmed, heart pounding, until the light vanished as suddenly as it appeared. That night I couldn't sleep at all. Every creak in my apartment sounded amplified, every shadow a threat. My friends noticed my change, my obsession with checking the sky, the desert, my own reflections. I couldn't explain it without sounding insane, so I lied, claiming insomnia and stress. Weeks passed. Each night, the encounters became more aggressive. Not attacks, not exactly, but harassment. Lights that followed me while driving, humming that traveled with me through the city, and dreams. Visions of that skeletal figure, appearing closer, sometimes in my bedroom, sometimes outside my window. It was always watching, always calculating. I started documenting everything. Photos, videos, GPS logs, timestamps. Something about recording it made me feel in control, even if I knew it was futile. One night, I decided I couldn't ignore it any longer. I packed a small bag, grabbed my cameras and a tripod, and drove to the desert again, farther west than before. I wanted to confront whatever this was, to see it up close. The road was empty, moonlight barely cutting through the desert haze. Hours passed. I began to question my sanity. Maybe I had imagined the hum, the lights, the figure, but deep down I knew I hadn't. Then it appeared, not far off, a sphere of light, hovering silently, perfectly still. My heart skipped. I raised the camera, but it immediately died. No memory card corruption, no battery issues, just gone. The light started moving toward me, faster now, erratic, intelligent. I ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. As soon as I started the engine, the road seemed to stretch unnaturally, the desert expanding like it didn't obey physics. That's when I realized I wasn't just being followed. I was being hunted. I don't know how long I drove, hours, maybe days. Time lost meaning again. I caught glimpses of the light in my rearview mirror, reflecting off sand, rocks, distant hills. And then it happened, I lost consciousness. I remember a sudden weightlessness, like being lifted off the seat, an overwhelming brightness, and then nothing. I woke up lying on a metal table, bright lights overhead. The air was cold, sterile, with a faint metallic tang. I couldn't move my body fully, though I could see and hear everything. The room was circular, smooth walls, and beyond them, shadowy figures observing. They were humanoid, yes, but proportionally wrong, limbs longer, heads slightly larger, movements unnatural. One approached me, closer than the others, and I could feel its presence in a way I can't explain. Not threatening, but powerful, consuming. A voice echoed in my head again. You are not harmed. Observation continues. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but my mouth wouldn't obey. Instead, they projected images, Earth, military bases, deserts, skies filled with unknown craft. They were studying everything, cataloging. And me, I could feel the focus on my mind, probing memories, thoughts, fears. I realized with a chill that what I had assumed was random attention was targeted. Something about me mattered to them, though I had no idea why. Hours or maybe days passed in that state. I lost sense of time entirely. Then, suddenly, the room shifted, and I was back in my car again. The desert stretched endlessly around me. My instruments recorded hours lost, things I couldn't explain. I drove without destination, exhausted, afraid, but also aware that I wasn't just being watched anymore. I was marked, and somehow, I understood that whatever followed me would never leave me alone. After that night, nothing felt real anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the room, the figure, the lights. They haunted me. I started carrying my cameras everywhere, even inside my apartment, setting them up on tripods to record the ceiling, the windows, the corners of the rooms. At first, nothing showed up, just static, faint blurs, shadows. But then I began noticing anomalies. Subtle distortions, flashes of light, reflections that didn't belong, and always, that low hum that seemed to follow me from room to room. My friends began to worry. They said I was paranoid, that I needed help. But I knew better. I could feel their presence, like a pressure in my chest when I entered a room, like a weight on my shoulders when I went outside. One night, I decided to confront it head-on. I drove to the exact coordinates where I had first been abducted, near that stretch of desert west of Area 51. I brought everything I could: cameras, audio recorders, even a small portable generator to power equipment. I set up a perimeter, triple-checked my gear, and waited. Hours passed. Nothing. Then, a faint shimmer appeared in the distance, hovering just above the ground. I thought my heart would explode. This time, I stayed put, hidden behind a rock formation, watching it move. It wasn't random anymore. It circled deliberately, scanning the terrain as if it could read every surface, every contour. My breath caught when I realized it was moving closer to me. I started recording, whispering into the audio recorder, trying to document everything. That's when I noticed a faint pattern. Light pulses, almost like Morse code, subtle vibrations in the air. My engineering background kicked in. I started mapping the pattern, realizing it wasn't random. Someone or something was communicating. But what? And why me? The light suddenly shot upward, faster than anything earthly, disappearing in an instant. My cameras picked up a residual distortion in the air, like a heat shimmer, and I swear I saw shapes moving, figures watching me, hovering, waiting. I spent the next few nights returning to that spot, trying to decode the signals. I was exhausted, my body drained, but the obsession took over. Couldn't stop. Then came the night that changed everything. I had stayed late, past midnight, notebook full of decoded patterns, cameras running. The light returned closer than ever. I ran, heart pounding, but as I reached the edge of a canyon, the world tilted. I felt weightless again, lifted off the ground, and in an instant, I was inside that sterile circular room once more. This time, they didn't just observe, they communicated directly. Images flooded my mind. Deserts, oceans, satellites, cities, all overlaid with symbols I didn't understand. But then the focus narrowed. Me, my life, my work, my fears, my decisions, they showed it all. And then the message became clear, not through words but through thought, emotion, understanding. They were cataloging human behavior, testing responses, learning. I realized with a chill that my fear, my panic, my decisions under stress, they were data. I wasn't being randomly observed. I was a subject, one of many, though why I was chosen remained unclear. When I asked the question in my mind, the response was immediate. Patterns identified. Repetition expected. Continuation necessary. That was all. They didn't explain. They didn't reassure. They just let me go. Back in my car, engine running, desert stretching endlessly, sunrise approaching. I felt changed, marked. They weren't gone. I could feel the connection, subtle but real, in every electronic device I touched, every shadow I passed. I couldn't escape. Over the next weeks, I tried to live normally, but the world felt different. I could sense them almost everywhere. In the sky, in satellites, in the way electronics pulsed. They weren't bound to one place. They were everywhere, watching, collecting, analyzing. I became obsessed with understanding them, tracking patterns, correlating sightings, reading every government document I could access on unidentified craft. The closer I got to answers, the more I felt the presence tighten around me. The lights returned more frequently, almost taunting. Then, one night, I noticed a pattern in the data I hadn't before. A series of geographic coordinates, evenly spaced, forming a path across the country. I realized it was a trail, a map, and suddenly, the truth hit me. I wasn't just a subject. I was a guide, being led somewhere. Somewhere they wanted me to go. Somewhere dangerous. Somewhere near Area 51. My mind raced. Was this a trap? Or a chance to understand them fully? Couldn't tell. All I knew was that the chase had evolved. I wasn't being hunted randomly anymore. I was being directed. And the next step was inevitable. The next night, I followed the coordinates exactly, driving into the desert west of Area 51. Further than I'd ever dared before. My cameras and recorders were ready, though I knew nothing on Earth could have prepared me for what was coming. The road ended abruptly at a vast, barren plateau. The moonlight cast long shadows, but it couldn't compete with the light appearing above the ground. A soft, pulsating glow, almost welcoming. My pulse quickened as I realized the path ended here. I stepped out of the car, every nerve on edge, and the light moved toward me. Slower this time, deliberate, intelligent. Then I saw it. Not one craft, but a formation of them, hovering silently, perfectly still in the desert air. Shapes impossible to define, yet undeniably physical, and yet almost ethereal. The hum filled my chest, a vibration that resonated deep within me. And then the figures appeared. The tall, skeletal forms, identical to the first encounter, surrounded me. I wanted to run, to scream, but the compulsion that had gripped me before returned. A need to watch, to absorb, to understand. Then it happened, the mind link stronger than ever. Images flooded me, Earth from above, patterns of human behavior, cities, deserts, oceans. And finally, the reason for all of it. They were collectors of experience, observers of intelligence, cataloging species, understanding reactions, decisions, morality, fear, courage. They didn't just take me, they tested me, probed my reactions, learned from my choices. And then the revelation hit me like a shock. I wasn't special. I was a representation, a sample. But in that moment, I realized why they chose me. Not because of my intellect or my courage, but because I questioned, because I recorded, because I remembered. Humanity doesn't just react, they reflect. They observe themselves while experiencing life. That quality was rare, and that's what I represented. The figures shifted. One moved closer. In the mind link, I felt its presence, commanding but not hostile. The message was simple. You understand. You are safe. You will return. Observation continues. And then, the light engulfed me, weightless, timeless, and I was back in my car. The desert stretched around me, silent, ordinary, but I knew it wasn't. My cameras recorded nothing, no craft, no lights, no figures. Yet I knew they were there, watching always. The hum had disappeared, but the awareness lingered. I drove back to my apartment, exhausted but alert, understanding that my life had changed forever. I was no longer alone. I began documenting everything, not just for myself, but to try and make sense of it, to prepare in case someone else was chosen. I created maps, logs, audio patterns, every detail meticulously noted. Slowly, I came to terms with the truth. I had been abducted, yes, but not in the way people think. I wasn't tortured, experimented on, or harmed. I was observed, cataloged, and released, with the knowledge that the interaction was only one layer of a larger system I might never fully comprehend. Weeks turned into months. I continued my nightly vigil, tracking lights, humming subtle patterns. The fear receded, replaced with cautious respect. They weren't enemies. They were something else, beyond comprehension, and my life was now intertwined with theirs. I accepted that my world would never be normal again. The skies above me, the electronics around me, even the desert I had once driven through in disbelief, they were all part of a network I could feel but not fully see. And the last thing I ever felt, before sleep claimed me at night, was the certainty that the chase was endless. Not a threat, not a warning, but a promise. They would always be there, observing, learning, guiding. I was both chosen and marked, forever changed.